All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the break. That was the incredible Anthony Starble. We Need to Be Loved. Love that song. Joining us now is Dr. Evan Goldstein of Bespoke Surgical for this week's installment of Tales from the Tail. Welcome back, Dr. G.
Thanks. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, she's the hoe.
We're talking about happy holes.
Oh, happy holes. Oh, happy holy days. So, as you can see, it's just two of us today. Chris is, he's got the day off today. He's studying and writing a paper for finals. So, we had to make sure he can focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
We can have a good time, just the two of us.
That's
Three
right.
of us, sorry.
Just the two of us.
Have you been listening?
Have I been listening? No, I've been busy doing some work. Why? What's up?
It's just the start of the show.
We opened the show with that song, Just the Two of Us.
No, I have not been listening.
Well, if you have a chance, just go back and listen to the opener because you'll be like, wow, Nick is a mess.
Yeah, he is. So what's going on, Dr. G?
Nothing. What are we talking about tonight? Are we talking about double penetration or Bruno?
I mean, so Holly said we should talk about double penetration.
Yeah.
And those were the two that I was torn between, so...
I thought we were talking about Rudolph, really, like seriously.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess let's talk about double penetration trouble.
All right. So did you guys read it? What's your take? What's your thing?
So, I read it, and the story itself is very enticing, to say the least. At one point in the blog post, you said that it made you turn. You got turned on. Yeah. Well, I was a little turned on too. And then I reread it today because that's what we confirmed, and I just wanted to make sure I had my brain around the whole thing, and I was like, that is a fucking hot story. It's super hot. But then I think about it, and we all know I'm a bottom, right? We all
Big
know
ol' bottom.
I'm a bottom, and I have no problem taking a sizable
Okay,
member.
listen, I will confess, I've done it before.
What?
Me. I took two.
All right. So that's good.
Maybe you need to go see Dr. G.
That was successful.
Yeah, it was a very long time ago, and I remember that we were. I had met the couple at a bar. I was probably maybe 22 at the time.
Oh,
and I met a couple at the
your
bar.
butthole still had elasticity, so you were good.
Of course it did. And yeah, it bounced right back. Are you kidding me? It was like, a ride in the park. So I met this couple and we hooked up, and I was riding one, and the other one said, "Do you mind?" And I'm like, "No, just make sure you're very lubed."
All right. So the other one, how did they come about inserting themselves? Did they come from the front?
Well, I was sitting on the guy that was laying on the bed, and then the other one came from behind me, and sort of pushed me forward, and sort of kind of
made more room.
Yeah. Oh, honey, there's a lot of stuff here, but back then I weighed maybe 150, so I was very tiny at the time.
Yeah, he was twinky.
You could find that hole with no problem.
Oh my god!
So we should probably, for the listeners, just talk about the story, right?
Yeah, I know, because now, yes, let's talk about the story.
So one of the clients went to an undisclosed gym and was just going into the steam room for just the routine steam, and then obviously caught an eye of someone, and then it kind of started to get a little bit frisky. I guess he kind of exposed his cock, and they both were beyond attracted.
But can we say reading your story, I was like, there was in my mind maybe 30 seconds between their first interaction and insertion.
Oh, totally.
And I was like, okay, that may be rape. That may be rape, but okay.
But exactly. But he went with it, right? So the guy that was gave him a good look in the steam room, exposed his cock. His cock was beautiful. And then all of a sudden he was eating his ass. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I guess another person entered the steam room as well. And then the original guy started to fuck him from behind. And then this guy just came up out of nowhere and just started to fuck him from the front. And again, it was kind of like a little bit of a rape scene, don't you think?
That's what it sounds to me. Yeah, I would have been like,
right.
"What are you doing? This is my hole."
Yeah, but I think it wound up turning the guy on, which I guess it does for a lot of people. I mean, it turned me on. I was a little hard listening to it.
Oh,
Same.
Well, I will tell you, reading some of your tales on medium.com tends to be it's like a mini erotica novel, right? Mixed with all the good, amazing
Information
that you provide to your readers, and of course to our listeners when we actually do Tales from the Tail. But it is like a mini erotica.
Oh yeah, it's totally unbelievable. And the scene played out, and there was no blood, there was no pain. Everybody got off, everybody ejaculated. It was like, amazing from what the client says. And then the next subsequent day, he had a bowel movement that was bloody with some pain. I had seen him before from some minor issues. Came into the office, and then he had kind of 2 fissures, which are these small little tears that developed towards the front and towards the back. And that's exactly where the penetration was, how they kind of entered him. And the friction of that, there was no lube. It was all spit and steam and sweat from the gym. So obviously it was not the most optimal
You're
for
making
double
it
penetration.
Even more hot right now, but keep going. Sorry.
And then, I did some stuff in the office. I used this chemical, which is called silver nitrate, which basically cauterizes the exposed muscle and the exposed skin that was kind of torn.
So what does that mean, though? Like, I know what cauterizing means, but how does that, I just don't understand how that would help a fissure, I guess.
Yeah, it basically encourages the scar there to form. So it's like a good kind of agent that works in that capacity. So you basically just kind of put it on a little bit where the exposed skin is cut, and then it kind of generates new scar in that area. And it needs to build like strong scar, right? Because shitting and having sex, there's a lot of pressure that is happening. Mm-hmm. So we have to kind of encourage healthy scar and good scar. Now, he did the right thing by coming to see me quickly. So this happens a lot just in the bottoming world, where people will be like, "Oh yeah, it's cool. It's a small cut. It'll heal. I'll do some little stuff," and then it never really fully heals.
Right.
And then if you wait too long, I need to then do a surgical procedure to kind of reset the stage so that it heals the right. I think a lot of it is like, after a day or two of doing, baths and like preparation H or kind of suppositories, if things aren't getting better, I implore you to kind of see someone like me early on, because we could do certain things to get it to heal.
Okay. So it's in this specific instance, this person had no signs of blood or damage until the next day.
Correct.
Which is surprising to me because, like I always do when I'm on the phone with you, I tell a story. So I've had plenty of situations where after my sexual experience, there's been blood.
Right.
And I've kind of come to a place where it's not necessarily common, depending on the sexual situation, if it's like rough or not rough, but like I can kind of tell when it's going to happen, right? Mm-hmm. But it always happens generally following the instance. So the fact that it didn't follow the instance directly is weird to me, and like why it came the next day.
Yeah, again, you're right. I mean, I think it happens many ways. There are certain times where like just it was the friction that caused the small little tears. There was so much lubrication that maybe it wasn't so evident at that time, and then taking a shit, was still pressure to go to the bathroom, where finally the scabs that developed that were actually holding there, they opened up and started to bleed. So I think I see it both ways, where some people have pinkish blood post-intercourse. Mm-hmm. Some people have frank blood post-intercourse. Some people the next day they see it, and so I think it's kind of many different scenarios of it. I think some of the things we have to look at is how do people prepare for anal sex?
Right.
So like the douching, the shower hosing, all of that causes a lot of trauma. and that sometimes sets the stage for people to have blood during intercourse.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, you have to think about it, that in the ass itself, there's really not a tremendous amount of pain fibers further up. So when you're using douching or shower hoses or you're doing something along that, a lot of times there may be significant trauma and you don't even know it. Then you engage anally. Then you engage anally having sex, and then finally after you start to see the kind of sequelae of having irritation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does. Can I ask
Yeah.
would it be correct to say that during the actual experience, right? You're
Yeah.
engaging in a sexual experience, and it's euphoric, and you've got all this adrenaline going through your body, and all of these senses being rattled, if we want to call it that.
That's what I would
could
call
could
it.
that be the reason why initially he didn't feel the pain of the tearing when he was
Yeah.
being penetrated by two people?
Yeah, totally can. I mean, obviously the endorphins are rocking and you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling the whole motion, and then he probably went right after to take a shower. So, you would think that you would see pinkish blood, but sometimes, you clean it off, you're using soap, and maybe there was some irritation that was there. And then the following day, he was able to concentrate that indeed there was some tears that are there.
So now that we're actually talking about the whole blood and bleeding thing, how normal is it? And when should somebody be nervous or reach out to a doctor like you if they are seeing blood in their stool or post a sexual experience? Like, yeah.
I mean, realistically, if you're engaging the right way, you shouldn't see blood post sex at all.
So I've been doing it wrong for 31
Well,
years.
yeah, you have to use your dilators, you have to use your jack and all those amazing.
But again, I
people.
think it's analyzing it to try and figure out, all right, well, what is the culprit to it? Is there something that's underlying this? Like, is there a hemorrhoid that's internally that's getting irritated? Are you over douching? Where the actual, let's say it's a shower hose or an enema kit that you're using, is that causing a lot of irritation in the area, and then that's predisposing you? When you look at the HIV and STD rates, they're still so high in our population, and a lot of that has to do with kind of that irritation anally. And so the question is, again, is trying to analyze, how do you engage, how do you kind of prepare for engagement? How do you then actually engage? What are the certain things that you're doing? And then how do you kind of take care of yourself post-engagement to see what the extent of the issue is?
Right.
And so, yes, periodically everybody has blood, right? I mean, you shit the wrong way, you're traveling, you're constipated, or you're having sex and it's just a big dick, or it's just the wrong angle. That can precipitate that. That may be a one-off. Right. But if it's something that's persisting, let's just take one episode. Let's say you bottom for someone that's quite huge, it tears, or you have some blood after, and a couple of days it dissipates, it goes away, and now you're bottoming back without having any blood. No issues. I don't think you necessarily need to see someone like me.
Okay.
If it's where you bottomed with that guy, it bled. 3 to 5 days later, you're still bleeding. There's a little bit of irritation. It waxes and wanes. It's not getting that much better. Then, yeah, you should see somebody. If it's somebody that every time you're bottoming, you have pink and there's irritation that's there with blood, yeah, you should see somebody. We should make sure that we're not missing something really easily treatable.
Right. When I first started experiencing sex and anal sex and all of that stuff, I was kind of told by my fairy gay mother, if you will, that like no matter what type or how
Don't
much you
trust
have
that bitch.
how much you have sex, anal sex, generally you will always experience some type of tearing, whether you physically feel it or not. Or if you physically have signs or not, because it's such an abrasive way to have sex, anal sex itself. Is that actually true? Am I, depending on the situation, am I tearing or in some way causing damage to my anal cavity every time I have intercourse.
You shouldn't be, specifically if you're doing all the right stuff, and again, I'm supposed to see you at some point, right?
Yeah, January.
It's a meat
We'll see. You keep bailing on me. It's all good.
That was one time, and it was not my fault.
It's a meat mincer. I hope you're prepared.
I'm all prepared. But I think the key
it
is,
went through the meat
again,
mincer.
He's never going to be on the show after January, everybody.
The show is canceled.
Don't say that.
With that being said, I mean, I think a couple of things. If you're using the right lubricant, and you're understanding the bottoming techniques, and you're using and kind of you're sitting and playing with tops that actually know the right way to engage, no, you shouldn't bleed. There shouldn't be issues of friction. There's ways to kind of diminish that. And I think that that's what we're trying to do at Bespoke, is kind of dispel the myths that are there and really kind of teach people to analyze sex in a little bit of a different way, to make sure that people are doing all the right things and being successful at it. There are tons of people that even go beyond, from fisting to huge dildos, and going crazy with it, that know that they're not bleeding, and they're able to understand their anatomy and the angulations that they need to do to achieve what they want to do. So again, I think that you and I just need to kind of evaluate to make sure that there's not one thing that could be causing this. Right. And I may be able to fix that one thing, and then you never have it bleed ever again.
Just cut his whole asshole off. He'll be
He doesn't need that. Probably a little tune up.
Please. I love that thing. Like, it's important to me. We're keeping that. Don't cut it off. He's going to put me under, and now it's going to be gone. Thanks, Tommy.
You're welcome.
But you bring up a good point, because in you were talking about friction, and in the article or the blog, you talk about friction a lot because they didn't use lube. And the amount of damage that can actually cause not using, plus having two dicks in there, on top of not using lube. So if you find yourself in a situation like you're gonna be double penetrated, or maybe you're just gonna have one dick in your ass but you have no lube, what should one do? Is spit okay? Is spit not okay?
Don't use Vaseline.
If you're in a steam room, you're not going to be carrying. I mean, maybe some people will be carrying lube in with them, but
you never know.
Some people probably wouldn't. Like, what should one do to protect themselves as best they can in a situation like that?
There's no right answer. If I knew, I would tell you. I mean, I think that, again, yes, there's many different scenarios that we're all going to find ourselves in, that you don't necessarily have the right stuff to use, and you improvise, but just understanding that, like, all right, well, there are certain sequelae and risks associated with that, and the reality is that if the scenario leads itself to a really good scenario, sometimes it's worth it, but again, I think it's kind of understanding, like, if you're going to engage in certain activities and you're going to do that, be prepared, just like the Boy Scouts, understand where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing.
Right.
And also, one of the things, like, the way lube is used from a friction perspective, what is he laughing at?
I don't know.
I just thought to myself, I own a lube badge.
What does that even mean? What's a
for
lube?
the Boy Scouts? You have that kind of badge for this activity. Own a lube badge. It's like
what's a lube badge?
You got a badge for carrying lube that's appropriate on you all the time. No, just continue.
So I got it.
He got it.
I didn't.
I got it.
Obviously, she was in the Girl Scouts. She was baking cookies.
I was in the Boy Scouts, but I was in. Never mind.
In the wrong troop.
You were definitely in the wrong troop, girl. Let me tell you something.
I mean, like, I had plenty of fun at summer camp. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, what were we talking about?